good night, everyone doing tonight. God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Reverend James Spirits. I'm here to give you a word on tonight. We still doing Bible study on the body of Aaron's staff. So now it's only going to come from Numbers chapter 17, verse 1 to 13. Now, the body to develop or show a sign of future success in a particular area. So the Lord said to Moses, speak to the Israelite to get 12 staff. So to get 12 staff, and from them one of the leader of each of their ancestors' tribe. So you're gonna get 12 staff. So you're gonna get 12 leaders. So each one's to have a staff for their ancestor. So they are to write the name of each man on his staff. So each one of them gonna have their own staff. They're gonna write their name on it. So on the staff of the Levi, you're gonna write Aaron's name. But there must be one staff for the head of each ancestor tribe. So this is only for the leaders. And Aaron is the high priest. So place them in the tent of the meeting in front of the altar of the covenant of the law. So while I meet with you, the staff belongs to the man I chose. So God said, the staff, that belongs to the man that I chose, was from, real myself of this constant grumbling against you by the Israelite. So Moses spoke to the Israelite, and their leaders, and give them 12 staff, like God said, and one of each of the leader, each one of the ancestors, as tribes, and make Aaron a staff among them. So Moses placed the staff before the Lord in the tent of the covenant. Now you have 12 leaders, and 12 staff, one for each of the ancestors. Now what they're supposed to do, they're supposed to have their staff and put their own ancestor name on it. They're supposed to put their name on it. So the next day, Moses entered the tent and saw that Aaron's staff, which represent the tribe of the Levi, that had not only sprung, but had budded, blossomed, and produced Adam. So Moses had brought out all the staff from the Lord, and represent all to the Israelites that take their own staff. So the Lord said to Moses, put back Aaron one staff in front of the altar of the covenant, the Lord to be kept as a sign to the Israelites, from rebellion. So this will put an end of their grumbling against me, so that they would not die. But the Israelites think they will die. They will, just the second generation. So the other generation that kept on mumbling, remember God, we're getting rid of them one by one. So anyone whoever comes near the tabernacle, the Lord, they will die. And they ask if we all going to die now. So the body staff. So leader authority was represented by his staff arrived in a selection, of one ride. God demonstrate that only his ultimate, authority, but also his selection of one man and one tribe. While God most received a sign to Israel that had been destructed, in a natural due to the need of rebellions. The sprouting of Aaron's rod is affirming and life-giving. Not only does God meet the critic of the test by making the staff, body, but he also goes beyond our human expectation to causing it to blossom and bear fruits. So God was representing that to the Israelites. Every time they look around, they complain. So every time they look at that, it gonna remind them of what they was doing. So now we're gonna talk about the water from the rock. Now this one Moses gonna mess up at and cause him not to enter into the land that God had promised. So it's gonna come from Numbers chapter 20, verse 1 to 13. Now we had 37 years now. You remember God said they're going to run around for 40 years, so that means they're getting close to their time. So they're getting close to their promised land. So now a whole, Israelite community arrived at the desert of Zin, and they stayed at arrival at the desert of Zin, and they stayed at Kishan. And that is Maren, that's Moses' sister, and she was buried. We don't know, we know that's Aaron and Aaron's sister. So soon as they enter into that land, his sister died. So a new generation will soon be ready to enter the land. Moses and Aaron and Joshua and Cleavage, you was the only one that still had survived that had entered come from Egypt. Remember, this is a new generation right here. This is all their children. God had killed all the ancestors. So Moses, Joshua, Cleavage, they're the only one, and Moses and Aaron, they're the only one survived. The only one, the original from that left Egypt. So once again, they camped at Kishan in a site of the first spy mission that had ended in disaster. Now you remember the first spy. That had the old other generation all warmed up and all had fear, scared. They reject from entering into their promised land because the first group went out and spied and came back with a bad report. So Moses, Moses hoped the people is ready for a fresh start. Now he hoped these people here, don't bag out and be too scared, but you got Joshua and Cleveland gone. So they're gonna come back, automatically gonna come back with a good report. So they're gonna be able to enter into their promised land. Now, they are in the land of Kislev, and there are no water, for the community. And the people gather around Moses and Aaron again, and they keep forgetting what happened to the people last time. They keep complaining, that's why their ancestor is gone. This is a new generation that were under 20 years old, remember? And they're still doing the same thing. Coming against Moses, and now they complain again that only they was killed like their ancestor in the wilderness. So that's the same thing that the ancestors said, and God get them just what they had said. God said, "I'm gonna do you just what you said," and they turn around and they're doing the same thing. So they're telling Moses, why did you bring us out here? No grain, no fig, no grape, no food. There's no water to drink. Now these the ones that was under 20 years old, but years in the past now, so they're a little older now. So the Israelites forgot that they're wandering around, what a result of their parents and their own sin. So they could not accept the fact that they brought their problem upon themselves, so they blamed Moses, for their condition. So Moses and Aaron had went from the assembly and they fell face down in the glory. The glory of the Lord had appeared. So they keep doing the same thing. No, not to keep on fooling with Moses. So Moses fell face down, and then the glory of the Lord had appeared, to them. And the Lord said to Moses, take the staff. Take the staff, you and Aaron, gather the assembly together, and so the Israelites need water, so now God is about to give Moses instruction to provide them with water. Listen carefully. Moses is gonna make a mistake. Not make a mistake. He gonna do it intentionally because he wants the credit. He not gonna follow instruction. Now God is giving them instruction. Now God is telling Moses, speak to the rock. Speak to the rock, before your eyes, and it will pour out water. Now, God don't say nothing about strike the rock. God says speak to the rock. Easy instruction for him to follow. Speak to the rock. I don't hear nothing about strike. He ain't said nothing about strike. He said speak to the rock. And what he say? Water will come out. So we see here, Moses don't have to strike the rock, but speak to the rock, and water will pull out, So Moses, if Moses do as God said, you will bring water out of the rock for the community so they can so their livestock and for them to drink water. Cause remember they got their flocks and everything else following behind and they got to eat and drink too. So now Moses took the staff. Now he not following instruction. He took the staff, from the Lord present, just as he commanded him, he and Aaron gathered around the assembly together, in front of the rock, and Moses said to them, listen, you rebel. You must bring your water out of this rock. So they lucky God is doing all that for them because they complain just like the ancestors did. So now Moses raised his own. He raised his own, and he struck the rock. Not strike it one time. He struck it twice. And God did not say strike the rock. God said speak to the rock. So water goes out. So listen, rebel. We must bring. Now see, this what I had forgot to tell y'all. This gonna be the first mistake he gonna make, cause he giving himself credit. Now Moses said, "Listen, you rebel. Must we?" He said, "We gonna bring you some water out of this rock." Now that's his mistake. He telling the Israelite that him and Aaron going. He said, "We gonna bring you." He didn't say nothing about God. He said, "We gonna bring you some water." That's his first mistake right there. He taking credit for what he's about to do. So he already had a mindset manipulation of what he gonna do. So that's why God is not gonna allow him to go to the promised land. Because in his heart and mind, he wanted to take credit. He did not give God no credit. He said, "We gonna bring you some water out of this rock." So then Moses raised his arm. He struck the rock, not once, but he struck it twice, with his staff. Water gush out, in a community, in a lifestyle, drunk water. Now you see, he did not follow instruction. But God loved Moses, and God wanted to provide for the Israelite. God used his power and allowed that water to come out. We don't have power. All power come from God. Now God could have been in his feelings, and he could have not used his power and just let him keep on hitting the rock and just hoping water gonna come out. But God is a compassion God. He's slow to anger, and he still allowed that water to come out. Because without God's power, Moses could not get no water out of there. He would have been bamming on that rock for the longest. But God allowed his power. God still used his power to allow that water to come out. But that's not what God had told him to do. God had said, speak to the rock. But Moses did it his own way. Because Moses was trying to get credit. Letting the Israelite, I'm close to God, so I got power. Y'all just stand around. Watch how I hit this rock and watch how this water come out. He wanted to get glory and credit for his own self, like he can get the walk out. We don't have power. All power come from God. So the Lord says to Moses and Aaron, now listen, because you did not trust me. See, Moses did not trust. It's not the idea Moses didn't trust God. If Moses just wanted credit, thinking he can hit that rock and water come out. But if God wouldn't use his power, that water would have never came out. So God says to Aaron, Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust in me, enough to honor me as holy, in a sight of the Israelite, you would not bring the community into the land I give them. Because he took away God's glory. He was supposed to honor God. He supposed to say, y'all come over here and watch how God gonna provide this water for y'all. He was supposed to honor God before he was supposed to speak to the rock, not hit the rock. He was supposed to honor God to the Israelite, you know, and that God gonna provide the water for them. See, when he told it, he had the Israelite all around. He said, "Y'all listen." He said, "We is about to give y'all provide some water for y'all." He did not say God. He was supposed to say, "Y'all come over here and watch how God gonna provide the water for y'all." He didn't say that. Moses wanted credit. He got too comfortable with God, and he wanted credit. He wanted them to think that he can, get that water out of there. Want them to think he had some kind of power. And he took the glory from God because he was supposed to honor God and give God that glory that God provided that water for them. Because we don't have no power. All power come from God. You know, so Moses would not enter the land. God promised them. The Lord had told Moses to speak to the rock. However, Moses struck it not once but twice. But God did his miracle anyway. God proved, that he is holy, among them. But yet Moses was taking credit for when it wasn't his. We bring you water. He said, we gonna bring you water out of this rock. He was talking about him and Aaron. He said, we gonna bring you water out of this rock. If God wanted to use his power, he wouldn't be able to have no water come out of that rock. He would have been hitting that rock for the longest. So for this, he was forbidden to enter the promised land. So this why Moses could not go to the promised land, because he wanted to take credit, for God's glory. He said, we gonna give y'all water. And then the second mistake he made, he struck the rock when God did not tell him to strike the rock. God said, speak to the rock and the water will come out. So I mean, he didn't trust God. He didn't trust God for him to just speak to the rock. If God tell you to speak to the rock, that means the water gonna come out just like he said. But he didn't want to trust God. He had his own ambition of what he had wanted to do. He wanted credit for something that he know it take God power to do. So by striking a rock, Moses disobeyed God, and direct command and dishonor God in the presence of his people. He just owned God in the presence of the people, because he was supposed to give honor to God, give glory to God, to them. He supposed to tell them, y'all come over here and watch the power, that God about to do. He was supposed to honor God. And he did not honor God. He honored his own self, that y'all come over here. We is about to give y'all some water. Excuse me. We is about to give y'all some water. So that's why Moses wasn't able to enter into the promised land, because he for two reasons. He gave credit to himself. He did not honor God. God is holy, and he was supposed to honor God, to give God his glory for that rock. And then second, he disobeyed God's command. God told him to speak to the rock. He wants to strike the rock, and not once but twice. So that was his mistake. So just a story on water from the rock. That Moses will not be entering into the promised land due to his disobedience. He did not trust God, because God told him to speak to the rock, and he thought he speak to the rock, the water was not gonna come out. So I mean, he didn't trust God enough to just speak to the rock. So we also talk about the body of the Aaron staff. So God had them with their staff, for all the leaders in the tribe, and they're supposed to write one of their ancestors on their staff. For the Israelite, every time they look at it, they'll know the ancestor of what they did and all this kind of stuff, because they're turning around and doing the same thing their ancestor had done. And that's the reason why they're gone. They're talking about, oh, you could have let us die in the wilderness like our ancestors. You know, that's the words the ancestors had said, and that's why God had took them out. You know, so that's all the word I have for you on today. Y'all have a blessed night, and I'll see y'all on the next video.